Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. Mairo Tambuwal is the wife of Aminu Waziri Tambuwal, the governor of Sokoto State in northwest Nigeria. She has followed the tradition of first ladies in Nigeria by launching a foundation called Nwach Legacy Initiative to serve as a platform for enhancing the welfare of women and children in Sokoto State. In June last year, she was by her husband's side as he flagged off the reproductive, maternal, newborn child, adolescent health plus nutrition project in the state. Joining us now for a chat on the mission of our charity projects is the First Lady of Sokoto State, Mairo Tambuwal, who, by the way, will be telling us what she thinks about the limited role of women in governance and what must be done to begin to give meaning to the expression gender balancing in Nigeria. Mairo, welcome to the morning show.
It's a pleasure.
Good to have you here.
Welcome to the show.
Well, let's start with your Nwach Legacy project, focusing on maternal mortality, infant mortality, reproductive health, adolescent health, plus nutrition. How is that organized, and what's the motivation for that special focus?
Okay. Nwach Legacy Initiative actually means Mariam Mustafa Aminu Waziri Tambuwal Legacy Initiative, intended to leave a lasting legacy in the state he governs and on humanity. So it's not a pet project. For me, it's a humanitarian platform. We flagged off the RMNCHN plus N program, which is a maternal program. The idea was actually conceived by the First Lady of Nigeria, Mrs. Aisha Muhammad Buhari, and we formed a coalition of governors' wives to go on advocacy to tackle maternal mortality. Like we know in Africa, Nigeria in particular, especially in the sub-Saharan part of Nigeria, infant mortality and other maternal issues is very, very high there in numbers. So we decided to form what we call the Governor's Wife Coalition Advocacy Group. And so that was the we flagged off with His Excellency. And then His Excellency, my Right Honorable Aminu Waziri Tambuwal, my husband, had passed a bill on contributory health scheme. So we just synergized and flagged it off to see how we can help, you know. Then we're trying to also break barriers. Because in the rural areas, we have challenges of women not being open to delivery in hospitals. So we had to come up with solutions in collaboration with the Ministry of Health on the state level to revamp primary health care centers, you know, to counsel those women, educate them so they understand, you know, that they have alternatives if they want to give birth in the jacuzzi and the bathroom. No, seriously, you know, that's the whole idea. You know, infant mortality is something that is really a conversation being held and will continuously be held.
Absolutely. But still on health, you tell us about your recent investiture as a World Ambassador for Hepatitis Zero World Eradication Day. And what do you have planned for World Hepatitis Day on Sunday?
Okay. World Hepatitis Day comes up every July 28th. What we're doing on Sunday, hopefully, is to provide free counseling, free testing, and counsel and create more awareness on hepatitis.
What is the scale of the problem in Nigeria?
Well, WHO says it's about 150 million thereabout. People suffer from it. And I would mention an instance where a very good friend of mine went for a thorough checkup in a very renowned and good hospital. After the checkup, when his results came out, and the doctor said to him, "You had hepatitis, but it's been cured on its own." So you see, there are different types of hepatitis. There's A, B, there's C as in category. And then they have similar symptoms with HIV and tuberculosis, you know. So a lot of our people don't even realize that they are either hepatitis patients or have tuberculosis or HIV. And sometimes they're misdiagnosed and have, you know, the damage from misdiagnosis on the wrong medication. So our plan is to create more awareness on hepatitis. The ambassadorship as a global project it's humbling to say, it came to me as a shock when I was nominated to be one of the global ambassadors, you know, and we have so many strategic plans on how to penetrate rural areas and urban areas,
and make sure people get
and
tested.
make sure people get tested and create more awareness about the disease and solutions for treatment. Luckily, the Rotary Club apparently have pledged, you know, that they have a mandate that no man would die of treatable diseases. So during the investiture yesterday, the organization was there and they had been working in collaborations with other CSOs. You know, they gave us very valuable and important information on the state of hepatitis in Nigeria. And it's a program that is intended for the First Lady of Nigeria, Mrs. Buhari, to actually be the chairperson, and then wives of governors or spouses of governors would be ambassadors for their states.
We're still on the legacy project. I mean, there are 23 local governments in Sokoto State. Are you covering all the local governments, or you are still at the level of pilot operation in some places? And then the sensitization and mobilization that the foundation has been engaging in. What has been the level and quality of response from the target audiences?
Okay, are you referring to hepatitis or general programs?
To your general programs.
Okay, right now we're doing our impact assessment, and I would humbly say we've done very well in the last 3 years because we've basically dabbled and touched every aspect of humanity. I'm very passionate about certain causes. I'm passionate about rare diseases like Noma disease, spinal cord injury, you know, adult orphans, environment issues, climate change, because Sokoto is one state that suffers from desertification and encroachment, rape issues, boy and girl child education. We make a lot of emphasis on girl child education, and I'm beginning to look at it as a politically correct program, where we tend to overlook the boy child education, which is also very, very important, because the miscreants and banditry we suffer from are largely from the boys. So something has to be done, you know, but the entire world is focused on the girl child and the girl child and the girl child, and the narrative has to change, in my opinion, to both gender, the boy and the girl child.
I completely agree with you. Women's issues, girls' issues were neglected for so long, for generations. So now this effort to overcompensate might be going too far. We need a bit of balance.
Absolutely.
But let's lift the veil a little bit. You said earlier that Moat's Legacy Initiative is not a PrEP project. Yeah. So what actually inspired you? What informed your choice of your projects, your agenda? How do you fund your projects? Let us into what it takes.
I think it started from a very young age. I'd always been very humane, if I may use that word. Going for exchange programs, doing things with Red Cross, those days being in the Brownies, you know, the Girls Guide. So there had always been, even the Rotary, you know, as kids, you know, there had always been that willingness and zeal to help around. And then in my career path, I was privileged to work and implement some CSR humanitarian projects, you know. And then at some point in my life, it was very dark. 8 years ago when I lost my mother, I went into a depression, and, you know, it gave me a different perspective of life, deep reflections, and thought of what really matters. And I'd always hoped I'd get a platform. And fortunately, being a spouse of a public servant, it gave me a bigger platform to be able to express myself and impact on lives.
How do you fund your projects?
Through self-sponsorship, some financial assistance from development partners, sometimes collaborations, because major projects of ours have been collaborative. And then, we're in talks with several other donor and development partners who want to.
Let's talk politics. You are the daughter of a prominent politician, and now you are the wife of also a prominent politician. So, I mean, politics is something you grew up with. Now, when you look around the Nigerian landscape and what happened in the last elections, what's your assessment of the performance of women? Do you think that we have fewer women because the women themselves are not putting in enough, or because the system is still too patriarchal and anti-women, if I may use that phrase?
Okay. I'll start with my background, like you said. I grew up in a political family, and
the PRP, right?
The PRP. Actually started from the old NAPU.
Okay, okay. That's the original platform.
Yes, and then the PRP. And my father's sister was the first female House of Reps member in the country at the time. This was 83. My dad was in the Parliament of 1983. She was the first at 83 before the
collapse.
Before the collapse, you know. And at the time, the NEPO agenda was on the girl, child, and women empowerment. It wasn't a problem. Renaissance times, we're reading and we're discussing the Berlin Conference declaration of 35% affirmative action. But if you ask me, our men are not ready, with due respect. The last election was a bit disappointing for me because there were quite a lot of competent women who came out and vied for positions, but unfortunately they didn't make it. From observation, I think access to funding, election and electioneering in Nigeria is very expensive. So that was a challenge for the women. Dogmas and some cultural myopism, if I may say, is also a challenge. You know, there were so many women I hoped and wished we would see, you know, in Parliament, who would pass bills, you know, that will support the women folk, motherhood, you know, because only a woman can truly understand the problems of women. So I would say it's a politically correct statement of 35% affirmative action, yet we haven't even done 15%. But I would give my husband a lot of credit.
Well, Ajia would go on a short break, and then we'll come back. And then you tell us about what Honorable Tambuwal has been doing in Sokoto State with women empowerment. We'll take a short break. When we come back, we'll continue with this conversation. Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. Still with us in the studio is the wife of the governor of Sokoto State, Aminu Tambuwal, Ajia Mairo Tambuwal. Ajia, before we went on break, you had talked about the challenges women in politics in Nigeria face, and you were trying to cite the example of what the governor of Sokoto State, your husband, has done to promote the agenda of women empowerment. Please carry
on. To the credit of Right Honorable Aminu Waziri Tambuwal and in his servitude in Sokoto State, has done so far 69 appointments of women. 69? We've had his previous tenure, we had 3 female commissioners. We had about 16, 17 director generals, promoted some to permanent secretary levels, you know, and put a couple of women on permanent boards and some temporary board appointments. Now, it hadn't been done. Sokoto is a state where, from what I understand, they've always had one commissioner, and that is Women Affairs. But he came up, you know, with a commissioner for education in his last tenure, who is now the commissioner for social welfare, because the mandate for social welfare, you know, he has very big dreams, you know, on how to govern and impact on the lives of all. So yes, I would say he's trying to keep up to the affirmative action. But like, you know, there are always like cultural bureaucracies. Yeah. And our women in Sokoto have been very determined to be included in governance. They've applauded him, yet they make their demands. And I think with the pressure, he's going to bow into their demands and give more women portfolios in Sokoto.
Nice. I know apart from the political aspect, you're also passionate about affirmative action economically. I've always known you to have a strong entrepreneurial background, and that you really strongly feel that women need to be doing a lot more in terms of making strides in business, in creating legacies for their children and what have you. Let's talk about where we stand now in terms of where women are now and what the government can do to possibly, make life a little easier for women.
I think basically we just need an enabling environment. I remember when I formed my company in 2006, after I had left my paid employment. This day was one of my first clients because I did the first presidential poll, and then I launched the first telemarketing at the time. Now, the challenges that we faced was the brutality from the banks. You have a competitor who you're both looking for financial support, and then they want to give it to your male counterpart as against you, the woman. I've seen a lot of entrepreneurs rise, grow their businesses, but we can do better. We're beginning to see, we've been seeing women rising in the banking sector, which is a good one. We're seeing women rising in certain sectors, and certain sectors they're not. Women need to be supported properly. Beyond just being mothers. Yes, being a mother and a housewife is a full-time job. But then social entrepreneurship, network marketing, online entrepreneurship is something that a government has to, bring out as a project or pass a bill on, with very good incentive plans. I'll give you an example. Like in South Africa, to be precise, I think Cape Town, I think the Muslim community there in certain households who don't want their wives to be businesswomen, they're on a particular salary. I think there's a percentage that they're entitled to every month. And then they're allowed to just do the online business. So yes, there are different modalities that can be adopted. Women are doing well. But the controversies around our success or the woman's success in the economic world is a challenge. Look at what happened, for instance, the lady who was nominated for CBN and all the controversy. Look at the lady who was nominated for, I think it was ICPC as well, with all the controversies. Look at the lady who was aspiring for speakership. Look at what happened to our previous Madam Speaker, Right Honorable Patricia Ete.
So we're looking at political constraints, economic constraints, cultural constraints.
Let me throw something into the mix. Yeah. Now, in my view, women seem to be doing very well in business. That's why we have a strong platform like WIMBIs and women dominating formal trade. There's even a whole book on it, Women and Work, in West Africa and all of that. But the arena where there is serious problem is representation in public life, in politics. Decision-making positions. Now, earlier on you said men don't seem to get it. You seem to have blamed men. But there are some people who say that women are their own worst enemies. They say that women do not support women. Majority of voters in Nigeria are women. On election day, it's the women that go out. But the women, rather than support their own, they will prefer to vote for men. What do you think is responsible for this?
That I would also agree with you. But then, I think there's a lot of emphasis on that because we're chatty and noisy. Men can be more matured, Yes, sometimes women don't support women. But you won't blame women, a mother of 5'10", who a week to elections or a day to elections is paid some amount of money that she needs to sustain her household. Not many are principled. Poverty is one of the major issues why women don't support women. And naturally, there's the issue of perhaps ego. Some will say envy. I don't want to look at it from that perspective, though. I like to look at the socio-economic challenges of people and the choices they make. I do not agree with you that we have a lot of women in business. Yes, we have women in business.
SMEs, informal trade.
You said in the formal sector.
Informal. I said informal.
Informal. Now, women dominate the informal sector, but they don't have the support as much as they would want. That's why non-governmental organizations, state governments are coming up with small, medium enterprises, you know, all sorts of empowerment schemes. Corporate organizations are contributing their quota via their CSR platforms to make sure they support the informal sector. Yes, we have a lot of women there, but are they economically content? No. But are they busy? Yes. So if you look at it from that perspective, yes, women have dominated that. In the formal sector, like decision-making, that is where I think we need more women in decision-making.
Political parties would have us believe that they're making an effort with giving discounts with nomination forms and sometimes even free nomination forms for women, but it still is not doing the magic, as you said, when it comes to the arena of vote buying and just being outspent generally all throughout the campaign. The real power is probably, for women, is probably in political appointments. What is your reaction to the fact that we have 7 ministerial nominees, female ministerial nominees, out of 43?
How many women did we have in the last dispensation?
The same 7.
The same 7. So we have the same
36,
7.
36 minutes.
I don't want to do a comparison between this administration and previous administrations, but I don't think 7 is enough. And it's not even about ministerial positions. There was a prominent lady aspiring to be the Speaker, that is Madam Nkiru, Honorable Nkiruka, and then Dame Pauline Talon, who has earned, you know, her respect in the political arena, wanted the senatorial, it didn't work out. Groups of women mobilized and came out and said, you know what, let her be the new SSG. It never happened. So for me, that got me thinking, okay, why wouldn't a woman be an SSG?
Why not?
You know, it got me thinking, because that is the key area of decision-making.
The engine room.
The engine room.
Of government, the
of government,
yes.
You know. And especially a woman like her, who took a platform to a state where she was a deputy governor from nothing. She was the first.
Female deputy governor in Nigeria.
She had a heated political fight with her governor and launched the ACN platform at the time there, metamorphosed into CPC, subsequently APC. So I think she's done very well. The last time she was offered an ambassadorial position, which for me could be a retirement appointment, and she opted no because she had to look after her husband. So I don't think, well, the administration has done well, but they can do better.
Yes, you're quite correct about that. I would have loved to ask you, but we don't have much time again, how it feels to be the wife of a serving governor.